Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. According to an opinion of the Polish Supreme Court, the proposed wording of the draft bill prepared by the governing Law and Justice Party on the structure of the common courts constitutes the end of judicial self-government and silences judges. According to the spokesman of the Supreme Court, Judge Stanisław Laskowski, the Law and Justice draft does not comply with European law. Politicians from the Civic Coalition go even further. They claim that the draft may lead to the withdrawal of EU funds from Poland and even suggest that this might bring about a Polexit. Today, the Prime Minister, Mateusz Morawiecki, spoke about this conflict over the proposed law on the structure of the common courts.
PiS kolejny raz przedkładając projekt ustawy.
The Law and Justice Party again and again, this time by proposing the Polish court's assassination bill, is trying to protect their members from criminal responsibility for their actions. Prime Minister Morawiecki is afraid that sooner or later the Law and Justice politicians will face the criminal court. Prime Minister Morawiecki is acting against the Polish state. I am not afraid to use those strong words, because what we are witnessing in the Polish parliament might result in stripping away the EU funds.
Jest w parlamencie, może skutkować odebraniem Polsce środków unijnych.
Let's think about it. Is there a serious country, for example in Western Europe, which would allow for a situation in which some judges would contest the right of other judges to carry out the sentencing and to make other decisions? What kind of conditions would such a situation produce? This situation would cause chaos in the judiciary system and, of course, no serious country.
The left coalition has begun collecting signatures for a motion to bring Marian Banaś, the president of the Supreme Audit Office, before the State Tribunal. The application relates to the period during which Banaś was the Minister of Finance. The initiative met with a mixed reception from parties in Parliament.
There is no plan B in the case of Marian Banaś, as admitted by the chairman of Law and Justice, Jarosław Kaczyński. The possibilities of persuasive influence on the president of the highest chamber of control have run out. On the other hand, the left have prepared a previously announced request to bring the head of the Supreme Audit Office before the State Tribunal. He is now collecting signatures for this application, and 115 are required for the motion to pass. Until now, all members of the left parliamentary club have signed the motion. This is an insufficient number because there are 49 of them. The basis for submitting this application was an error made in the property declaration submitted by Marian Banaś as the Minister of Finance. As Krzysztof Gawkowski, chairman of the Left Club, reported today, he met with Sejm Deputy Marshal Ryszard Terlecki and appeals to the Law and Justice Party that MPs from this party should sign the application. According to Ryszard Terlecki, there have been no decisions made by Law and Justice in this case. Most likely, at the next sitting of the Sejm, on Thursday or Friday, the Law and Justice Club will meet and a decision will be made. However, the head of the Civic Platform, Grzegorz Schetyna, is skeptical about the left's idea.
I do not see this application. I do not see any justification or reason to analyze it. We have submitted a request of information to the Central Anti-Corruption Office on the dismissal of Minister Kamiński, and this is where our attention is focused. We have forwarded our application, which indicates the legal grounds for holding President Banaś accountable before the State Tribunal, indicating that these are his duties which he did not fulfill, most likely providing false property declarations as the Minister of Finance. This information was forwarded to Marshal Terlecki with such conviction that the signatures of Law and Justice MPs are desired. We hope that after the meeting, which will take place, Law and Justice deputies will decide whether to sign this request or not. The situation in which the second president of the Supreme Audit Office will perform his functions, having unresolved issues related to the normal operation of the judiciary, is intolerable. Mr. Banaś is not a member of our party and never has been, therefore our possibilities of persuasive influence have run out. Now these are just opportunities related to the justice system. We still hope that the common sense of the chairman of the Supreme Audit Office will prevail.
Official commemorations of the anniversary of the December 1970 massacre took place today in the northern port cities of Gdansk, Gdynia and Szczecin. 49 years ago, the communist authorities violently broke up protests by labour unions against drastic price rises. Soldiers and officers of the citizens' militia killed 45 people and wounded more than 1,100. Those responsible for the massacre were never brought to justice.
As part of the 49th anniversary of December 1970, President Andrzej Duda took part in the celebrations at the gate of the Szczecin shipyard.
Dla mnie to bohaterstwo, a przede wszystkim
For me, this is heroism and above all a deeply horrible historical trauma and also a terrible testimony for Poland after 1989, because until then there was no responsibility for these actions being taken. If any, it was only to cover up the so-called intra-party matter.
i straszne świadectwo.
The massacre of workers on the coast was the bloodiest communist militia action during the suppression of protests that lasted from December 14th to 22nd. People took to the streets opposing drastic increases in food prices, demanding a change of government and freedom of speech. In December 1970, the authorities decided to implement drastic increases to prices of goods. They were introduced by surprise just before Christmas, so the workers of the great coast factories, at the beginning in Gdańsk, later in Gdynia, Szczecin and Elbląg, went out to the streets protesting against these increases. The authorities reacted in the worst possible way, which was to go up against the demonstrators with the army, leading out tanks and giving the orders to shoot the workers, which turned into a real massacre. It started on the night between Sunday, December 13th and Monday, December 14th. On December 14th, chaos overwhelmed Gdańsk. On December 15th and December 16th, it moved in Sopot, Gdynia. The 17th became known as Bloody Thursday on the platform in Chylonia and actually throughout Gdynia, because all the gatherings that appeared there were being shot at. That increased the number of not just the wounded, but also killed. Then the other shipyards began to riot as well, and then a general strike on the coast was established from Elbląg to Szczecin. According to official data, the military and communist militia killed 44 people, 18 of whom died in Gdynia alone, and injured 1,160 others in December of 1970.
Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki has announced the creation of a special thermo-modernisation and renovation fund, the goal of which is a thorough modernisation of heating systems in buildings made from prefabricated concrete. It is estimated that over 12 million Poles live in this type of building.
Wielki program termomodernizacji rozszerzamy.
We're expanding the already huge project of thermomodernization. This means many renovations will have to be done, so we're renovating Poland both figuratively and literally. The lack of properly heated living blocks equals higher expenditure on electricity and on heating, thus harming the environment.
Elektryczną niekiedy. Chcemy adresować.
I would also like to address the issue of air pollution. 44% of our society is affected by it. We managed to bring down the concentration of toxic substances in the air from 300 micrograms per cubic meter to 150. Let me remind you that our predecessors in 2012 raised it from 200 to 300. We're lowering it from 300 to 150 and we're aiming for 80 because we can't shy away from this important subject.
Normy ochrony powietrza z normy antysmogowe.
That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, Poland Daily Business and more programmes. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.
Hello, and welcome to Poland Daily Weather. The forecast for tonight calls for partly cloudy skies throughout the country. It will be a very warm night for this time of year, as the temperatures will vary from 4 to 7 degrees. Tomorrow, we can expect a bright and sunny day in Poland. Clear skies will greet the citizens of Warsaw and Białystok. The rest of the country will see partly cloudy skies. We can expect very strong winds from the south, which will cause high temperatures varying from 8 to 14 degrees. The next 3 days will bring partly cloudy and cloudy skies, and we can expect the temperatures to stay above zero, reaching a high of 13 degrees on Saturday. And that is all for now. I thank you for joining us, and I invite you to stay with us for Poland Daily Business.
Poland Daily Business Edition. Tonight we will talk about the far, far east, or India in a sense, because our guest, Professor Zbigniew Krysiak of Warsaw School of Economics and Institute of Schumann is also teaching at one of the prominent India's business school. Sir, welcome to the show.
Yeah, nice to be here.
What are your reactions when you personally are not only traveling to India, but working there and meeting those people on a business level?
Yeah, first you see very, extent areas of poor areas, poor people, poor infrastructure. The ways are in incredible stage, so the railways are, of course, okay, and underdeveloped, country, but as well, very fast growing, GDP because of course, a high population. Currently, the GDP growth is bigger than the UK, and in nominal terms is bigger than United Kingdom, the former, colony. India was a former colony of the UK. And India basically is, as well as I can perceive, is kind of an engine for countries like Poland and the Frisian area. So if you compare the population of Frisian area's population around 130 million people.
Less than 1/10 of the India's.
Yeah, 10%. India 1.3 billion, people. But this is Frisian, then from that perspective could be a very good partner for India. So India opened currently, 6 sectors to work to, expect for the investments and for the export from our countries. But, to supply that demand which is in India, we cannot just be alone like Poland. So the Frisian area should currently, develop a concrete strategy to get some kind of a synergy connecting to the trade with India and investment in the India.
What are the areas we can work together and that make sense from the business point of view?
Yeah, they are very, 6 major areas which are very much demanded in India, and these areas we can cover as Poland and the Frisian area. The first one is food processing, In India they waste much food, because they don't know how to store, how to process to store, right? Next, this is a chemical, industry. Next, the mechanical industry. So the fourth one would be, the coal mining equipment to explore the resources of the coal up to 90%. Currently, the technology India is using allows to explore up to 30%, which means they just lose much, coal under the earth. And Poland, for instance, in that technologies is very good. The next area is housing industry. So for basically families, this is a very, a poor outlook which you see in India. The people just live in something which you never can call a house, And what they need to have a brick houses, because not a wooden one, it's, basically acceptable by them. And next is education, and as well the air transportation, personal transport by air. So this is a major, a challenging and very, important areas we can, as a Frisian area, supply and cooperate with India.
That's mainly technologies and expertise to be adopted locally in India. Do we have any services and products that we can actually ship from Poland to India, or that doesn't make any sense right now?
Oh yes, it's how I can imagine, and as I talk, to many people in India, then we should start first with, exporting a technology, exporting goods. For instance, start to export. Thinking about the food processing. The Indian people should just touch, how the processed food looks like in their shops, right? So, for instance, they like a chicken, right? For instance, but they never seen, a sausage. made from chicken, right? So the first, to export, food, to export technology, right? And build on that, different industries, different factories, because, for a long time, there is not sense, and it would be more expensive to export instead of producing on spot there.
The transportation costs are extremely high, and the local production of industrial chicken farms has its also environmental cost, but also brings up the whole delivery chain, because you need to feed those chicken, you need to have the fields and so on. And then you have to do something with the remains. So the whole new business and whole new fragment of the rural economy, which is very important.
Yeah, and even, raising a chicken, feeding, the farms, as you see, in the chicken farms, they are not, basically well established. This is very poor approach to organization and technology, to raise the chicken. And they do not have a ducks, for instance. They can eat duck, right? But they don't have these farms. So there are many, opportunities, to develop, that market in that area. And, the very, important factor is that the India will in long time, over next 20, 50 years, develop with a high speed.
And we will definitely look forward to that and make business links with this growing market. So thank you very much for this conversation. Professor Zbigniew Krysiak of Warsaw School of Economics was our guest tonight.
Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily Business Weather. The forecast for tomorrow calls for a bright and sunny day in Poland. Clear skies will greet the citizens of Warsaw and Białystok, while the rest of the country will see partly cloudy skies. We can expect very strong winds from the south, which will cause very high temperatures varying from 8 to 14 degrees. In Europe, we can expect showers in the far east in Moscow and Helsinki, as well as in the far west in Lisbon, where the temperatures will reach a high of 17 degrees. Dublin and Stockholm can expect sleet and a temperature of 8 and 6 degrees. The rest of the continent can expect partly cloudy and clear skies. The warmest spots on the map will be Athens and Rome at 18 degrees, while the coldest will be Moscow. That is all for now. I thank you for joining us, and I wish you all a very pleasant evening.
Good day, everyone. My name is Maria Kądzielska, and welcome to Poland Daily Culture. In this series of programs, I'll be talking to Michał Laszczkowski, the head of Cultural Heritage Foundation in Poland. If not for Michał, many great pieces of architecture would be still in pieces, if not gone forever. Michał, thank you for finding time to be with us.
Thank you for the invitation.
But before we start the interview, let's see some shots of his actions. Michał, the biggest project of renovation is Warsaw of Cultural Heritage Foundation in Poland. It's renovation of Jewish cemetery. It is one of the biggest cemetery in Poland, just after the one in Łódź. And it gathers around 2,000 matsevas, so 2,000 Jewish tombstones here. Tell me, how many have you already been able to renovate?
It's more than 2,000 because it's more than 90,000. It's the largest collection of Jewish tombstones in Europe, second largest in the world. The largest collection of Jewish tombstones is in Jerusalem. But we renovated only 100, so a bit more than 100. But the program of renovation, the Jewish cemetery in the compulsory renovation program is much more complicated. This cemetery is one of the largest Jewish cemeteries in Europe, but it's the largest collection of Jewish tombstones in Europe. The second, the largest collection of Jewish tombstones in the world is in Jerusalem. But if we think about the cemetery as a project, as a large project, not the renovation is the most urgent thing. This cemetery hasn't been cleaned since the war. The leaves were falling down. They transformed into soil. The whole cemetery is covered with the 40 centimeters of soil. All the tombstones are covered with it. The trees, there's something about 8,000 trees. At least 20% of them has to be cut down very soon because it's very dangerous to go there. This year we're cutting down 1,000 trees. I'm living in the Warsaw city center, so trees are very important also for me as a citizen. But in that cemetery, it's a disaster. It's an old jungle that has never been cleaned. There weren't any trees before the war. In Jewish cemeteries, we don't have trees. That cemetery needs to be protected in a very systematic way. So first of all, we have to cut some trees down, then start to take care of the others, then removing the soil, which covers the tombstones. Then we've got plenty problems with the walls, with everything what's needed technical protection. So this is a very complicated project. I never expected such a complicated project. But if we think about the cemetery as of one of the most important, one of the 5 most important Polish cemeteries, because after Łyczaków, Łyczakowski Cemetery, Powązki, Rossa, or Rakowice, at that cemetery there are buried people so strongly connected to Polish culture, that had so strong influence of Polish culture, public life, social life. Plenty important Poles are lying in that cemetery, and so we've got a duty to protect the tombstones and protect the memory of them.
And the foundation has received, in a famous case, I would say, 100 million zloty as a supplement perpetual capital. The revenue from investing part of this perpetual capital from subsidies is to be allocated in conducting renovation, conservation and investment work in this cemetery, as I understand.
Yes, there was a special endowment fund established for the renovation process. We invest those money for, and all the money we earn
from the investment.
From the investment.
Which is an important thing to say, because a lot of in the media, it was basically very often just said that the foundation have received 100 million zloty just to do the renovations, but I understand you don't use exactly this money, but you use the interest from this money. Yes,
yes, precisely. We are not. We didn't receive it. It was given only to invest in a very secure way. But those money are still governmental property. We are using them to invest, and all the money we earn, we can spend on a renovation program. It was the only way to do that project, because it's so. 8 years without doing nothing at the cemetery, it's something you cannot meet in any other place in Poland. It was the last such place where we had to start the whole process, long-term process, from the early beginning. And frankly speaking, we are earning something about 2 million zloty each year. So it's not much. We are possessing money also from the other resources, like Ministry of Culture, Warsaw City Council, like Mazowian Voivodeship, because this cemetery is one of the most important monuments, Jewish monuments in Poland, if not the most important. So if somebody ever thought that it's not worth to do it, that person should visit that cemetery and to take a look at the common history of 200 years, common history of Polish and Jewish Warsaw citizens. It's a most beautiful monument of the communities that were living together. They were very close to each other, and they have common history, common culture, common ideas. It's one of the most important signs, original signs of Jewish community in Poland. If you will take a look at the map of Warsaw, pre-war map of Warsaw, there were plenty of districts connected to Jewish people. Jewish people were living in some district. Right now, Warsaw, during the war, Warsaw was almost totally destroyed. And the cemetery shows us the most about the life. If you visit the Warsaw Jewish Cemetery in Gopowa Street, you will find the tombstones of participants of Kościuszko uprising, of November uprising, January uprising, members of Solidarity movement, soldiers who were fighting against Bolsheviks in 1920, people that were creating Warsaw industry, Warsaw bank system, Warsaw culture, scientists, the publisher of the first Polish encyclopedia, the Ministry of Treasure of the underground state in 1863. It's a large collection of monuments of people who are very important and strongly connected to Polish history in 19th and 20th century.
We keep fingers crossed for this work, and if you, the audience of Poland Daily Culture, haven't visited the Jewish cemetery in Warsaw yet, you absolutely have to do it. And thank you for watching our program.
For Poland, the 19th century was a century of struggle for independence, and thus a century which for Poles did not end until the 11th of November 1918, when a new, independent Poland emerged from the ashes of the First World War. This is the story of how the 1905 revolution led, as those of 1830 and 1863 had not, to independence and of the emergence of Józef Pilsudski as the leader of a reborn Poland. For Poland, the 19th century was a century of struggle for independence, and thus a century which for Poles did not end until the 11th of November 1918, when a new, independent Poland emerged from the ashes of the First World War. This is the story of how the 1905 revolution led, as those of 1830 and 1863 had not, to independence, and of the emergence of Józef Pilsudski as the leader of a reborn Poland. Welcome to Poland Daily History with me, Nicholas Richardson. And we're continuing our series of looking at all things rebellious and revolutionary. We started with the 1830 revolution in Poland, the uprising. We then went on to the 1863 uprising. And now we're going to start with the 1905 revolution in Russia, which led on to a series of events, ultimately, at the end of the First World War, seeing the re-emergence of Poland as an independent country. And I'm joined in the studio by our resident expert, Dominik Szczęsny-Kostanecki. Dominik, welcome. I think I'm right in saying that in the early part, when in 1914, his sort of allegiance, he invaded or went into what was then the sort of Russian territory, hoping, I think, to stimulate more of an uprising. And we'll agree to, well, not quite with indifference, but it wasn't quite the reception he was hoping for.
In Kielce, people were, closing windows very abruptly, seeing that...
So this group of poets and artists, doctors and young noblemen didn't really infect the local territory with a revolutionary fervour.
This legend was growing up. The longer Piłsudski was in play, the legend was growing higher and higher. And besides, very important for Piłsudski, because some regarded Piłsudski as a German agent, because what he did, I mean, he was fighting alongside with the Germans and the Austrians. So for the Dmowski's followers would call him like this. I mean, he's a German agent. But at some point...
and I think it's fair to say that the Austrians were very sceptical about the value of his legions at one point. They weren't really sure whether this was militarily...
In 1913, but already in 1915 and in 1916, when the legions fought very bravely and they bled a lot in Wolyn against the Russians, for example, the famous Battle of Kostiuchnówka, they realized that this is good army. Even the German Kaiser said, "Oh, the Polish soldier is a good one."
Yes. And of course that brings us to 1916. Of course, when we then have this rather interesting, this sort of not quite a bidding war, but on the one hand, the Tsar is trying to encourage Poles with some idea of a new Polish territory, which will be Polish, but sort of linked to the Russian crown. And because the central power, Austria and Prussia, try and promise something similar, this sort of 5th of November declaration.
This is a breakthrough, this 5th of November declaration, because the Austrians and the Germans say that no, we are creating or recreating the Polish kingdom. Wow. After so many years of captivity, now the Germans who didn't, the Germans of all kind. I mean, the Austrian Germans and the Prussian Germans.
So that is worth pointing out is that in 1915, of course, the Central Powers marched into Warsaw. So the Russians were.
Yes, so we have to repeat.
Yes, so for that, and that's probably quite significant in itself.
It was, and besides, already in 1915 some cultural institutions were established or re-established. No, the University of Warsaw was re-established, and with a Polish principal. I mean, the Russian Tsarist University of Warsaw was dominated by Russian intellectuals. But when the Germans arrived, they gave some cultural freedom, and yet again, Polish language was advancing in offices. And in 1916, as you mentioned, the 5th of November Act, signed by the two emperors, two Kaisers, stipulated the creation of a Poland that would be a monarchy.
With a monarchy, in fact, as a monarchy.
With a monarchy. Yet the question who should be the king was, remained unsolved till the end. At first they created the so-called Provisional Council of State, but let's not talk about it too much. I mean, Piłsudski was the chief of the Ministry of the War Ministry, but in 1917, in let's say the half of in the mid 1917, he resigned. We'll come back to that later. But the body I would like to focus was the so-called Rada Regencyjna, so the Regency Council.
Which is made up of 3 people.
Yes, the Archbishop Aleksander Kakowski, Prince Lubomirski, and Count Ostrowski. So basically, we can see that the Germans wanted to, they didn't want to give power to any revolutionary, forces at that time. These were
solid,
serious,
figures.
Good old Poland.
Good old ancien regime type characters.
So this is it, and this Regency Council survived.
Because there's a Regency Council because nobody had yet. This is one of the frustrations, I think, that despite saying you're going to have a new kingdom, but the borders of the kingdom were not actually made clear, and the identity of the monarch was not entirely clear at that point either. When I say not entirely clear, I mean, of course, not clear. Nobody knew.
And Piłsudski insisted on the Germans to make more, let's say, to speak more resolutely about the shape of future Poland, because they wanted, they wanted to have the Polish support, but not to promise too much,
well, exactly,
or if anything,
yes,
it's kind of maneuvering.
Okay, getting back to the scientists, who else is from Gdansk?
I don't know. Why don't you tell me?
Okay. Well, this isn't a scientist, but he's a famous author, Günter Grass.
Oh, Günter Grass. No, you mean an artist or a famous person, a celebrity from here, personality.
There's one.
Not a personality, but personage, somebody who achieved something. Günter Grass. He wrote the Tin Drum, which is set in Danzig.
There you go. There's one, and then there's Lech Wałęsa.
Lech Wałęsa, absolutely. He's a famous man. Yeah.
Who else? I'm from Gdansk.
You're from Gdansk, 3 gold records or something. I don't know. I have every segment I'm going to say that.
There are
3
some more
gold
scientists.
records. No, one's platinum. Sorry, folks. Whoa, what a mistake.
There's
You
also
forgive
some more
me.
scientists, but they're escaping my memory at the moment.
Another scientist? We have Madame Curie in Warsaw. And we have Joseph Conrad in London. He didn't live in London, did he? He lived in England when he wasn't sailing his boat.
I lived in Warsaw for a while, and I lived in Old Town. And right around the corner from where I lived in Old Town, there's a monument to Maria Konopska something.
Maria Konopska? I don't know.
Yeah. And I like it because Maria means something, and Konopska means something, and the monument is a stone. So everything kind of connects.
What does Konopska mean? I have no idea.
Konopia.
What does it mean then?
It's just I don't know, it sounds like it comes from the root. Ska, it just means an adjective, it's like an ending in Polish.
Okay.
Ski, ska is an adjective ending.
Okay.
And they use it on people's last names a lot.
All right, I have no idea.
So for me, it just seems like it's all about marijuana.
I see, because the name for
Maria.
marijuana.
Maria and Konopska, and it's a stone. The monument is a stone.
Oh, like stoned.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I see.
You're not stoned right now, are you?
No.
Because that's illegal.
No, I wouldn't do that.
That's illegal.
I don't even smoke cigarettes anymore.
No, I don't think smoking's good for you. Yeah, I don't.
Children at home, behind the lens there.
Yeah, the cameramen are children. They shouldn't smoke either. They're very young. We brought them from Kiev. I don't even know if they're 18. Hey, are you boys allowed to drink? They're shaking their heads. They're not allowed to drink. We brought them from Kiev, and their mothers were weeping that we brought them here. She said, whatever you do not let them drink of the devil's brew. And I said, of course.
Okay, we won't go back to Piwna Street. Anything else you want to know about Gdansk that I might know?
Well, I mean, you don't actually live in Gdansk, do you?
I did, and I will, and I come here every week.
But yeah, okay, so you're here all the time. But
constantly.
You're in Chev. You were also in Sopot for a long time.
My bands are based in Gdansk, so I have to come back to practice with them, like today, for example.
Yeah, today you have a rehearsal in just a little while, yeah? It's about, 5:30 in the afternoon, something like that, right now?
Right now, something like that.
Yeah. And dark.
Yeah, it's already dark 30.
Dark as Aladdin's cave.
It's dark 30.
It's dark 30, yeah, somewhere, including here. Yeah. What would you say are the greatest hits of Gdansk? We talked a little bit about nightlife before, and
for people who
here in
want
this
to
popular place.
see like landscape and history type stuff, or
yeah,
what?
I mean, if you're a tourist just coming here, I mean, I know you can shoot a Kalashnikov. I read that online. If you want to do something like that, or you can wander over, as we said, to Kaliningrad and stare at the borderline and go, "There's Russians over there."
Yeah, there are many trips everywhere that you can do.
You can do
Elbląg,
trips.
Kashubia, the Baltic.
Kashubia is very interesting.
Sopot and Gdynia.
Yeah.
And here I would say Old Town, including just hitting all of Old Town, going around and seeing it all, and then going on the island.
The island is across the canal from the Old Town.
Yeah, so it's called Spichlež,
yeah.
So it means the granary island. And the
Right, because they have
Motłava,
all those granaries, storehouses there.
yeah, and there's some are finished and some are still waiting to be redone. So you can really see, before and after right now in this decade that we've got right now. And when you go to the island, you cross the Motłava, and the Motłava is the canal. So there's a lot of canals.
The name of the canal. The Motłava. It's not a river. It's a river.
No, it's a canal.
It's just canal. The Motłava Canal. Okay. Yeah.
And then it connects into the bay, which connects into the Baltic. So little rivers connect in there, and
There's quite a large bay here in Gdansk.
yeah, and there's a bunch of like islands that are formed by these different canals. in a neighborhood called Dolne Miasto, which is connected. It's definitely
Dolne Miasto.
Yeah,
Yeah.
lower city.
Lower city.
Over there, you've got these fortifications. You know, you got the zigzag moat,
Right.
that protected the city from the south,
Right.
from whoever would attack from the south.
Right.
So it, and on that, the neighborhood out on the other side, you've got all this flat land that was, you know, that's where the farmers lived that sold the produce in the on the other side of the city walls.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a nice spot. It's in Dolne Miasto, which is growing now.
And you have Olivia as another section.
Oliva.
Oliva,
Yeah.
sorry. And there's a nice, but there's a
Very nice
fantastic cathedral.
Cathedral and the whole thing that connects with the cathedral, the whole
park around.
There's a
it.
park, like a botanical gardens and things.
Right.
Yeah, and that's
It's a,
you know
really
that's
a wonderful place, especially in the spring. Or
see because Gdansk elongates to Sopot and Gdynia,
Yeah.
because the three cities.
Right.
So those areas, you've got to really travel over there to get to Oliva and those other neighborhoods, because where we're kind of walking around, that's all Old Town and the things that surround it. But yeah, there's plenty of things towards Sopot, to the north.
yeah, and then you have all the museums: Solidarity Museum, World War II Museum. You can go out to Westerplatte and see where World War II started.
Exactly.
The first shots were fired against Poland by the Nazis.
And over that way is also
Yeah.
Wisłoiście, which is where the Wisła River, the Vistula River, goes
It's
into
estuary.
the
It's estuary.
And then there's a bunch of fortifications there.
Oh yeah, I've heard about those. I hear that's very interesting.
Very interesting. They do. Sometimes in the summertime they do techno parties over there, and then it's a very historical spot. It's just a bunch of fortifications spread out. Very interesting.
So there are endless things to do in Gdansk. That's the point. Folks, there are endless things to do in Gdansk. We're going to be in subsequent episodes on this trip. We're going to go around. We're going to show you some of what the old town looks like. Be joined by my friend Carl, and next few, our friend, you know Carl longer than I do, and the owner of this fine establishment called Absinthe here in beautiful downtown Gdansk, next to the Long Market. Watch Poland Daily Travel. I've been talking to Gliński Meyer, 3 gold records. He told me not to say it, but I'm teasing him now. Who's got to soon go off to do his rehearsal for a James Brown concert. You're doing a James Brown tribute concert. And what's your favorite James Brown song?
I don't have one. Maybe, I don't know, I don't have one.
Living in America.
Yeah, and
I
we
love
changed
that.
it. We changed it to Living in Kashubia.
Living in Kashubia?
Yeah, because the Kashubian region is the beautiful region that you can grab just going west of Gdansk.
Yeah, Kashubia is an amazing place to go. I've been there a couple times. Not enough. Poland's full of beautiful places. It's hard to find enough time to go to all these places when one works, even if one does this work.
Glacial lakes, the glacial lakes in Kashubia and Missouri.
Yeah.
Missouri. You know Missouri?
Yeah, it's where St. Louis is.
St. Louis and Kansas City.
Yeah.
There's Missouri in Poland,
Masuria.
which is North Poland.
Yeah, that's the.
It's the green
Western
lung
Poland,
of this part,
Eastern Poland,
of these
right.
parts of Europe. This is kind of one of the green lungs.
Yeah. Good man. Thanks for joining us. Gliński Meyer, big hand for him. And watch Poland Daily. Watch us on YouTube. You can go to our Facebook page, Poland Daily Travel. You can go to the Poland Daily general page on Facebook as well. Come and,
Oglądaj Poland Daily Travel.
Exactly, and just like it. That means watch it. Watch Poland Daily Travel. Oglądaj Poland Daily Travel, and like it, and like us on Facebook. It doesn't take you much time, but it means a lot to us. Because why do we do this? You ready? We do it
to get, I don't know.
to get a beer. We do it for you. Poland Daily Travel. See you later.
Thank you.